There's a moment, maybe it happens after a fight, a betrayal, or just a long day of noise when you realize this. Not everything needs your voice. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every trigger is an invitation to speak. That moment, however quiet, is life-changing. You start to realize that the real flex isn't in proving your point, it's in not needing to. The power is not in the comeback. The strength is not in the volume. The power is in the pause, the restraint, the silence. You see, we're taught that silence is weakness, that if you don't defend yourself, you've surrendered, that if you don't explain yourself, you must be guilty. But let me offer you a truth that took me years of emotional warfare to understand. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. When you're in the presence of someone who cannot be reasoned with, what's the point of arguing? When you're pulled into drama that's not even yours, what do you gain by reacting? And when your peace is on the line, when your inner calm is the price, ask yourself, is it worth it? We live in a world addicted to reaction. Someone posts something, and within seconds, there's a flood of opinions, judgments, insults. Someone disrespects us, and instantly our blood boils. We snap back, raise our voice, try to force them to understand us. But here's the paradox. When you react, you hand them your power. When you respond impulsively, you're no longer in control. They've dragged you into their storm. And your peace, gone. I want to flip the script for you. Imagine this. Someone insults you, pushes your buttons, tries to provoke a fight, and you say nothing. You don't argue. You don't defend. You simply observe. That's not avoidance. That's emotional mastery. That's not weakness. That's warrior energy. Because in that moment, you're doing something most people can't. You're choosing calm over chaos. You're choosing dignity over drama. You're showing them, and more importantly, yourself, that your peace is non-negotiable. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your energy to waste it. It means you've outgrown the need to clap back, to win arguments, to be right. You're not here to fight battles that only leave you bleeding inside. You know what I've realized after sitting with monks, with CEOs, with broken-hearted people, with overthinkers, with warriors and warriors alike? Everyone's chasing the same thing. Peace, not success, not revenge, not validation, just inner stillness, the kind that doesn't shake when the world gets loud. And that kind of peace is protected in silence. But let me be clear, I'm not talking about silence that suppresses. I'm not saying you should hold in your voice when something must be said. I'm not talking about running away from the truth. I'm talking about the kind of silence that arises when you're deeply connected to your worth. You no longer need to shout it. You embody it. You no longer need to prove your value. You live it. You don't need to correct every misinterpretation. You know who you are. That's what real Strength Island. Think about the calmest people you know. They don't argue in circles. They don't panic when misunderstood. They don't explode at every provocation. Their silence is their statement. It says, I'm not here to compete for power. I am the power. And maybe that's what you've forgotten lately. Maybe you've let people bait you into their chaos. Maybe you've felt the need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Maybe you've confused silence with being unseen, unheard, invisible. But silence isn't invisibility, it's alignment with your truth, with your growth, with your highest self. And that kind of silence speaks volumes. Let me tell you something personal. There was a time in my life when I responded to everything, every insult, every jab, what did you mean by that? Because deep down, I needed to be understood. But one day, I realized being understood by others means nothing if I'm not at peace with myself. That's when I started practicing the power of the pause. Before reacting, I would pause. Before responding, I would breathe. Before engaging, I would ask, does this require my energy or just my awareness? And that simple practice changed my entire life. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. Not everything that disturbs you deserves your participation. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every trigger is a command to react. Silence teaches you how to listen not just to others, but to your own nervous system. It teaches you how to discern between what needs your voice and what simply needs your presence. And that presence, that still grounded presence that doesn't waver when challenged, that's what makes people feel you without you even speaking. Let me leave you with a question. When was the last time your silence made you proud? Not the kind of silence that comes from fear, but the kind that came from self respect, self mastery, and clarity. So today, I want you to ask yourself, what am I giving my voice to that no longer deserves it? Where am I leaking power just to prove something that doesn't need proving? Start making your silence intentional. Make it sacred. Make it protective. And I promise your peace will rise to meet you. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. Tell me about a moment when your silence became your strength. ATA. Like this video, subscribe if you're ready to protect your energy, your growth, your future. And thank you truly for walking this journey with me. We're just getting started. Let's get one thing straight. Detachment does not mean disconnection. It doesn't mean shutting your heart. It doesn't mean being indifferent, cold, or emotionally unavailable. See, the problem is we've been taught that if you care, you must cling. If you love, you must control. If something matters to you, you must be obsessed with the outcome. But the truth is, caring with wisdom is far more powerful than caring with desperation. And that's what emotional detachment is really about. It's not that you stop caring, it's that you stop crumbling. Because if your peace is always tied to other people's choices, to outcomes you can't control, to expectations they were never going to meet, you'll always live in emotional chaos. Let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that their mood dictated your day? One cold text and your whole world went dark. One missed call and your mind spun out of control. One moment of disappointment and suddenly your value felt questioned. That's not love. That's emotional overinvestment. And I've been there. I've stayed up at night replaying conversations, wondering what I said wrong, what I should have done differently, carrying their silence like it was a personal punishment. But here's the hard truth. People's behavior is often a reflection of where they are, not who you are. And when you tie your emotional stability to their behavior, you've handed over the keys to your own peace. Detachment is how you take those keys back, not in anger, not in coldness, but in clarity. Here's what I've learned. The more emotionally entangled you are, the more your vision gets blurred. You can't see what's actually happening because you're too busy feeling. You're not observing the facts, you're absorbing the drama. You're not responding with intention, you're reacting with desperation. That's why detachment is not a withdrawal from love, it's a return to self. It's the ability to say, I see what's happening and I can care deeply without losing myself in the process. Because your peace is not a prize someone else gets to hold hostage. One of the most liberating things you'll ever realize is this. You don't have to attend every emotional fire you're invited to. Not every silence needs to be filled. Not every conflict needs to be resolved immediately. Not every relationship is meant to be saved. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Not because you don't care, but because you've learned to care in a way that doesn't destroy you. We've been conditioned to think detachment means you've given up. But what if I told you it actually means you've grown up? Because mature love says, I love you, but I won't lose myself for you. I'm invested, but I still have boundaries. I want this to work, but I will not beg for my worth. Detachment teaches you to release your grip on how things should be and open your heart to what island. It's the moment you stop saying, why aren't they treating me right? And start asking, why am I still allowing this to disrupt my peace? You begin to understand that love without self-respect is not love, it's dependence. And no one, not your partner, your boss, your family, your friends, should have the power to hijack your emotional state. When you detach, something powerful happens. You stop reacting. You start reflecting. You stop forcing. You start flowing. You stop bleeding for people who don't even notice you're cut. It doesn't mean you walk away from everyone. It means you stop chasing people who aren't walking with you. It doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop overgiving in places that only take and never replenish. Let me put it like this. Emotional detachment is not building a wall, it's building a filter. It's asking, does this situation deserve my energy? Does this person get access to my emotional bandwidth? Is this tug of war actually helping or just draining me? And here's the thing most people don't tell you. Detachment is a practice. It's not a switch. It's not something you master overnight. It's a discipline, a daily, conscious, sacred decision to pause, to assess, to protect your peace like it's sacred because at island, you will slip. You will overreact. You will still feel everything. But the difference is you'll no longer be ruled by it. You'll notice the shift when you start saying, I see what they're doing, but I won't match that energy. I care, but I'm not responsible for fixing what they refuse to face. I love them, but I love myself enough not to stay in chaos. This is emotional maturity. It's not sexy. It's not loud. It's not the kind of growth people celebrate on Instagram, but it's the kind that builds a life you don't need to escape from. You start sleeping better, thinking clearer, walking away faster, and smiling more, not because life got easier, but because you stopped letting everything get to you. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be people who call you cold, who say you've changed, who accuse you of being distant, detached, unavailable. Let them, because those who benefited from your emotional exhaustion will always resent your boundaries. And that's not your problem. That's your proof that the detachment is working. What you're doing is reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. You're remembering that your worth isn't measured by how much pain you're willing to carry for others. It's measured by how deeply you protect your peace, your values, your space. You can still love, still show up, still be kind. But now you do it without sacrificing your soul. And that, my friend, is real power. Let's talk about something most of us were never taught. Your nervous system is not just reacting to life, it's running your life. It's the silent engine behind every outburst you regret, every text you wish you didn't send, every conversation that escalated too fast, every moment you snapped and thought, why did I lose it over something so small? It wasn't weakness. It wasn't failure. It was your nervous system doing what it was trained to do, survive. Now, here's the catch. We live in a world that glorifies reaction. You're expected to answer instantly, defend yourself instantly, prove your worth instantly. But the truth is, you don't need faster reactions. You need deeper regulation. Because no matter how strong your mindset is, if your nervous system isn't calm, your power will collapse the moment you're triggered. Let me break it down. When someone says something that triggers you, maybe it's disrespect, rejection, being ignored, being misunderstood. Your brain doesn't pause and think logically. Number, it sends a signal to your body that says, we're in danger. And boom, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your fists clench, your voice sharpens. You feel the heat rise, the blood boil, the pressure build. Sound familiar? This is what I call emotional hijacking. And the scary part is it happens in milliseconds. It's not your fault. It's not because you're broken or weak. It's because your body is running on an old script, one likely written years ago, maybe even in childhood. If you grew up in chaos, inconsistency, or environments where safety wasn't emotional, your body memorized survival. So now, even the smallest discomfort feels like danger. Someone ignoring your text feels like abandonment. A raised voice feels like threat. A disagreement feels like rejection. You're not reacting to the moment, you're reacting to a memory. And that's why we need to learn the skill of regulation because we can't heal what we keep reliving. Now, I want to share something with you that changed the way I respond to life. The pause. Yes, that 1 second pause, that space between stimulus and response. That moment where you don't let the trigger speak for you, you speak after the trigger has passed. Because here's the truth, emotions are energy. But if you let them drive, they'll crash the car. You have to be the one who drives. You have to create space to breathe before you speak, to notice the activation in your body before you act on it. It might sound small, but it's everything. When you feel that tightness in your chest, when your jaw starts to clench, when your stomach drops, when your breath becomes shallow, pause it, breathe deep, tell your body, we are safe. Because if you don't feel safe, you can't stay calm. And if you can't stay calm, you'll keep reacting from wounds instead of wisdom. Think about this. You can't respond powerfully if your body believes it's in danger. That's why learning to regulate your nervous system is not a soft skill, it's a survival skill in the modern world. In ancient traditions, monks, warriors, and spiritual leaders were trained in breath before they were trained in battle. Why? Because inner stillness always precedes outer strength. You can't fight the world until you've trained the world inside you. So how do we regulate? Let me give you a few simple practices you can start today. IDD, breath awareness. Try the 4-4-4 method. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Repeat 3 times. It tells your nervous system, we're not in crisis. You're okay. Doyo. Body check-in. Ask yourself, where am I holding tension? Your shoulders, jaw, chest. Unclench, relax, reconnect. 23. Grounding through senses. Use your 5 senses. Notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This brings you out of the storm and into the now. AD4, postpone the response. Tell yourself, I'll respond in 10 minutes. That simple delay creates space for the emotion to settle and clarity to rise. This is what mastery looks like in real life. Not screaming, not proving, but pausing, regulating, choosing your energy on purpose. And here's the beautiful thing. When you regulate, you change the energy of the room. You stop being pulled into other people's chaos and start anchoring your own peace. You become the calm in the storm, not the storm itself. But I want to be honest, this isn't easy. It's uncomfortable to sit in silence when your ego wants to scream. It's hard to breathe through a trigger when you were raised to react. It's humbling to walk away from chaos instead of engaging. But every time you choose regulation over reaction, you're rewiring your life. You're creating new pathways in your brain that say, I am not controlled by this moment. I am safe. I am calm, even here. And eventually your nervous system learns it doesn't need to fight. It doesn't need to flee. It can sit, breathe, observe, and choose. That's what emotional freedom looks like. So the next time you feel the fire rising, before the words form in your mouth, before the reply is typed, before the doors slam and the energy explodes, stop, close your eyes, breathe, and remember, regulation is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not suppression, it's self-leadership. And when you lead your nervous system, you lead your life. Let me ask you a tough question. How many times have you looked back on a situation and thought, why didn't I see that sooner? Why did I tolerate that for so long? How did I not recognize the signs? The truth is you couldn't see it because you were too close to it. When you're emotionally entangled in something, your vision gets blurred. Not just figuratively, neurologically. You start interpreting reality through the lens of fear, of hope, of attachment, of what you wish was true, instead of what actually island. That's why detachment isn't cold. It's clarity. It's the moment you finally step back from the storm and realize you've been soaking wet for years. When you're too close, emotions distort your perception. You confuse someone's potential with their patterns. You mistake attention for love. You confuse comfort with peace. You rationalize red flags because the connection feels familiar, even if it's toxic. So the first step to seeing the truth is creating distance, not out of punishment, but out of protection. Not because you're done caring, but because you finally care enough to stop pretending. I've coached people through heartbreaks, betrayal, toxic friendships, confusing career moves. And you know what I see over and over again? They didn't lack intelligence. They didn't lack heart. They lacked space. And that space is what detachment gives you. Emotional distance isn't about avoiding people or shutting down. It's about creating enough room between you and the situation so your wisdom can speak louder than your wounds. Let me say that again. Your wisdom cannot speak if your wounds are screaming. And most of us have been trying to heal, grow, or make decisions while drowning in emotional noise. Imagine trying to read a map while sitting inside a car spinning in circles. You'd be nauseous, confused, disoriented. That's what happens when you try to figure everything out while still inside the chaos. But the moment you step out, the moment you detach and observe from the outside, you see the path, you notice the patterns, you remember who you are. Detachment gives you height. You rise above the battlefield and finally realize you don't need to fight every war. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to chase what's running or beg what's breaking you. But Jay, you might say, what if stepping back makes me lose them? And I get that. I really do. But here's what I've learned. If distance ends it, it was the closeness that was lying to you. Réelle connexion survive space. True love respects pause. Authentic people don't disappear when you stop clinging. Sometimes you have to let things fall away so you can see what actually remains, what actually stays, what actually respects you when you're no longer available on demand. And even more than that, sometimes you need distance, not to see them clearly, but to see yourself clearly. You start asking better questions. Why did I need their approval to feel enough? Why did I shrink myself just to keep the peace? Why did I ignore my instincts just to avoid being alone? That's when the shift happens. You begin to realize that detachment is not disconnection, it's realignment. You're returning to your center. You're pulling your energy back from people who didn't value it. You're reclaiming your mind from thoughts that never brought you peace. And that clarity, it starts to reflect in every area of your life. You choose better friends. You walk away from jobs that exploit your gifts. You stop forcing conversations that go nowhere. You stop bleeding for people who won't even hold a bandage for you. Let me offer you a metaphor. Your energy is like a flashlight. When you're emotionally attached to everything, every opinion, every reaction, every possibility, you're shining that flashlight in 100 directions. But when you detach, when you pull back, when you slow down, you shine it in one direction. And that's when you see clearly. Clarity doesn't mean everything feels good. It means everything makes sense. It means you finally stop negotiating with reality. You stop trying to twist yourself into who someone wants you to be. You stop justifying behavior that your soul already knows is breaking you. Clarity means you see it fully. And once you see, you can't unsee. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. And that's the gift of detachment. It wakes you up. You realize not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Not every moment requires your emotional bandwidth. Not every loss is actually a loss. Some are liberation in disguise. Let me say something that might sting. Sometimes peace only shows up after the wrong people leave. And you don't even realize how much energy they were stealing until silence enters, until your nervous system relaxes, until your body doesn't brace itself around them anymore. That's not loneliness. That's clarity. You're not being punished. You're being protected. You're not losing everything. You're finally losing what was blocking everything. And that truth, that's what emotional detachment reveals. So the next time you feel the urge to chase clarity by chasing people, pause, breathe, step back, let the fog settle, let the storm pass, let your inner voice speak because it always knew the truth. The question is, have you been quiet enough to hear it? Let me start with this truth. Your peace is worth more than your point. Most of us were raised to believe we must always defend ourselves. If someone accuses us, we explain. If someone disrespects us, we clap back. If someone misinterprets us, we rush to correct them. But here's the hard reality. Every time you react to prove yourself, you hand over your power, you let someone else dictate your energy, your words, your emotions. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life trapped in a cycle of trying to prove your worth to people who never valued it in the first place. Think about it. How many arguments have you walked away from feeling worse, not better? How many texts have you sent just to set the record straight only to regret it later? How many hours have you wasted explaining yourself to someone who is never really listening? That's the trap. You think you're standing up for yourself, but really you're just exhausting yourself. See, the ego craves the last word. It wants to be right. It wants to be seen, validated, understood. But the soul doesn't need any of that. The soul is at peace when you know who you are, even if nobody else does. Peace is not passive. Peace is power. Because peace says, I don't need to participate in every battle. I don't need to prove what's already true. I don't need to fight just to be heard. Let me share something I learned from the monks. When I lived in the ashram, I noticed something monks rarely reacted. Not because they didn't feel, not because they were emotionless, but because they understood this ancient principle. Not every arrow is worth catching. If someone throws negativity at you and you catch it, now it's yours. You're carrying it. You're holding their anger, their judgment, their projection. But if you let it pass, if you stay still, if you stay calm, if you stay silent, it doesn't touch you. That's what peace over proving looks like. It's the decision to not pick up every arrow, to not play every game, to not defend yourself against every misunderstanding. And I know it's hard because silence feels like surrender. It feels like weakness. It feels like they won. But I want you to consider this. What if the real win is walking away with your peace intact? What if the strongest move isn't the loudest comeback, but the calmest silence? What if real confidence is not needing to respond at all? Most people confuse silence with losing, but silence often means you've already won, because the person who doesn't need to prove anything has already proven everything. When you stop reacting, something incredible happens. You start to see the bigger picture. You recognize the pattern. Some people don't want resolution, they want reaction. They thrive off pulling you into chaos because it gives them control. Your silence starves them of that control. And yes, they'll push harder, they'll get louder, they'll twist your words, poke at your buttons, try every trick to bait you. But the more you stay centered, the clearer it becomes. Their chaos was never yours to carry. Let me ask you this. How many of your fights in the last year were about things that truly mattered? Not ego, not pride, not misunderstandings, but things that truly deserved your energy? I bet very few. And yet, those petty battles drained you the most. It's time to stop giving away your energy like free samples. Not every argument deserves attendance. Not every insult deserves acknowledgement. Not every critic deserves a reply. Your silence says more than your words ever could. It says, I choose me. It says, my peace matters more than your chaos. It says, you no longer have access to my emotions. And that's powerful. Now, don't mistake me. Peace over proving doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or staying quiet when boundaries are crossed. It means you choose how and when to respond. It means you respond with strategy, not impulse. It means you know that your energy is too sacred to waste on proving yourself to people who have already decided not to see you. You don't need to scream when you're living your truth. You don't need to defend your worth when you embody it daily. You don't need to argue for your value when your presence already demonstrates it. This is the shift from ego to essence, from reaction to reflection, from proving to peace. The next time someone provokes you, try this. Pause it. Ask yourself, if I engage right now, will it bring clarity or more chaos? If the answer is chaos, stay silent. Let your peace be the loudest statement in the room. Because here's the irony, the more you stop proving, the more powerful you look. People notice, they feel it. The one who stays calm when everyone else is losing control, that's the one who commands respect. So stop giving people the privilege of seeing you break your peace just to prove your point. You don't owe them that. You owe yourself better. Let your silence speak. Let your actions speak. Let your peace speak. Because in the end, nobody remembers who won the argument. They remember who carried themselves with dignity. And that, my friend, is you. Let me tell you something we rarely think about. The most powerful person in the room is not the loudest one. It's not the one who dominates the conversation. It's not the one who forces their opinion. It's the one who sits in stillness, calm, grounded, unshaken. Why? Because that presence speaks louder than words ever could. We live in a world obsessed with noise. Everybody's shouting to be heard. Everyone's competing for attention. Social media tells us if you don't post it, it didn't happen. If you don't respond instantly, you're irrelevant. But here's the paradox. Confidence doesn't need to announce itself. Confidence is quiet. Confidence is composed. Confidence is choosing not to prove, not to perform, not to panic. That's why stillness is magnetic, because it's rare. And in a world full of noise, the one who is still commands all the energy without even asking for it. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who walked into a room and didn't have to say much, but you felt them? You noticed their composure, their calmness, their centered energy. That's not arrogance. That's not indifference. That's silent confidence. And here's the key. Silent confidence isn't something you pretend. It's something you practice. It's born in the private moments when you learn to sit with yourself, to regulate your emotions, to breathe through your triggers, to detach from the noise. It's the byproduct of inner discipline. Most people think confidence comes from speaking louder, moving faster, doing more. But real confidence is rooted in the opposite, the ability to slow down, to observe, to not be rattled. Imagine someone insults you in public. Most people would rush to defend themselves, fire back, try to win the moment. But the person with silent confidence doesn't need to. They know who they are. They know their value doesn't shrink just because someone tried to belittle them. So they stay calm. They let silence do the talking. And you know what happens? Everyone notices, because silence in the face of chaos is not emptiness, it's presence. Here's the truth. Your energy introduces you before your words do. People feel your nervous system before they hear your sentences. If you walk into a room anxious, they feel it. If you walk into a room defensive, they feel it. But if you walk in calm, centered, grounded, without saying a word, you've already made an impact. That's why stillness creates presence. Because it's not about what you say, it's about what you carry. But let's be honest, stillness is hard, especially if you've been conditioned to equate silence with weakness, especially if you've always had to defend yourself, explain yourself, prove yourself. Silence will feel unnatural at first. It will feel like giving up. But that's only because you've been taught that reaction equals strength, when in reality, restraint is strength. Silent confidence is knowing you could react, but you choose not to. You could argue, but you'd rather protect your energy. You could clap back, but you'd rather preserve your dignity. That choice, that restraint is where real power lives. And here's the shift. When you start embodying silent confidence, the wrong people will call you cold. They'll accuse you of not caring. They'll project their chaos onto your calm. But that's just proof you're growing, because people who feed on your reactivity will always be unsettled by your stillness. They don't know how to handle someone who doesn't flinch. Meanwhile, the right people, the ones who value presence over performance, they'll feel safe around you. They'll admire your calm. They'll respect your restraint, because stillness creates trust. It creates gravity. It creates presence. So how do you practice silent confidence? Let me give you a few steps. EDA 1. Sit with your silence. Most people run from silence. They fill it with scrolling, noise, distractions. But true confidence is built in those quiet moments. Practice sitting in silence daily, even for 5 minutes, and notice how your thoughts settle. Ecce due. Observe before you enter. Before walking into a room, pause, breathe, ground yourself. Remind yourself, I don't need to perform, I just need to be present. 23. Listen more than you speak. People who feel confident don't rush to fill space. They observe, they absorb, they listen deeply, and when they finally speak, people listen. 2A4. Respond with intention. When provoked, delay your reaction. Confidence is not answering instantly, it's answering wisely. It's showing that your emotions don't control you. Silent confidence is not about being passive. It's about being precise. It's not about suppressing your voice. It's about choosing when and how to use it. And when you operate from this place, something beautiful happens. You no longer chase validation. You no longer over explain. You no longer seek approval because you realize the quietest confidence is also the deepest. It's the confidence of someone who has sat with themselves long enough to know, I don't need your applause to feel enough. I don't need your reaction to feel real. I don't need your understanding to feel whole. That's the kind of presence that shifts rooms. That's the kind of energy that disarms critics. That's the kind of stillness that makes people lean in because they feel something rare. So the next time you're tempted to prove yourself, pause. The next time you're pressured to perform, breathe. The next time you're provoked to react, smile. And remember, your silence, your stillness, your presence is already speaking louder than anything you could say. There's a version of you waiting to be born, not the reactive version, not the overthinking version, not the version that snaps, defends, explains, and exhausts itself trying to keep up with the world's noise. I'm talking about the grounded version, the clear version, the untouchable version of you, the one who walks into storms but never becomes the storm. That's the version of you silence builds. That's the version detachment protects. That's the version calmness reveals. Because here's the truth, when you master your inner calm, you become unshakable. Let me break it down. Most people live like leaves in the wind. Every gust, an opinion, an insult, a setback blows them off course. One bad day, and they collapse. One rejection, and their self-worth shatters. One misunderstanding, and they spiral. But you're not here to be a leaf. You're here to be the tree. Roots deep, trunk unmovable, branches swaying but never breaking. No matter how hard the storm rages, your ground doesn't shift. That's what untouchable calm looks like. It doesn't mean life stops testing you. It means the tests no longer own you. It doesn't mean you'll never feel anger, sadness, disappointment. It means you'll feel it without drowning in it. It doesn't mean people stop trying to provoke you. It means their attempts no longer succeed. And the beauty of this calm is it doesn't just protect you, it transforms everything around you. Think about it. When you're grounded, you communicate differently. Your voice carries weight without volume. Your decisions come from clarity, not chaos. Your relationships shift because people realize they can't manipulate or unbalance you anymore. You become the calm presence people seek out when they're overwhelmed. You become the anchor in your family, in your friendships, in your work, because when others are spiraling, you're still, this is how leaders are made, not by shouting the loudest, but by standing the strongest. Not by controlling others, but by mastering themselves. But let me be real with you, living untouchably calm requires discipline. It doesn't just happen, it's trained like a muscle. Every time you resist the urge to react, you're training calm. Every time you breathe, instead of snapping, you're training calm. Every time you choose silence over drama, you're training calm. And slowly, what once took everything in you becomes second nature. Calm becomes your default, not your effort. Here's something I want you to hold on to. Peace is not found after the battle. Peace is found by not entering it. The loudest fight you'll ever have to win isn't with others, it's with yourself. It's against the ego that screams, defend yourself, against the fear that whispers, you're not enough, against the old habits that crave chaos because calm feels foreign. But when you choose peace over proving, stillness over shouting, presence over panic, you win the only battle that matters. You win. Let me share a story. I once worked with someone who told me, Jay, I can't stop arguing. I can't stop explaining myself. Every time someone questions me, I feel attacked. So I asked him, what's the cost of winning these arguments? He paused. He thought. Then he said, exhaustion, broken trust, lost time, a constant heaviness. And I told him, that's not winning, that's losing everything that matters most. True victory is walking away with your peace still intact. True power is smiling when someone expects you to break. True confidence is saying nothing and letting your life speak for itself. And that's available to you if you're willing to let go of old patterns. So, how do you live grounded, clear, and in control? Enna, anchor daily. Start your day with silence. Meditate, breathe, pray, whatever grounds you. Don't let the world set your tone before you've set it yourself. Ideas, protect your energy. Treat your attention like currency. Stop spending it on arguments, gossip, or proving your worth. Invest it in growth, clarity, purpose. Redefine strength. Strength isn't clapping back. Strength is staying centered when provoked. Strength is restraint, not reaction. Jeda Sera. Embody calm. Walk slower. Speak softer. Listen longer. Let people feel your steadiness. That's how presence is built. And here's the secret: when you live this way, you stop chasing validation because your worth is no longer up for debate. You stop craving approval because you already approve of yourself. You stop being triggered by noise because silence has become your home. The world will notice. Some will respect it. Some will resent it, but none will be able to shake it. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is not apathy. Calm is not surrender. Calm is clarity. Calm is discipline. Calm is mastery. And when you live from that place, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Not because the storms stop, but because you've built roots so deep, nothing can move you. So I want to leave you with this. Every time you pause, every time you breathe, every time you choose peace over reaction, you're not just calming yourself. You're becoming a new version of you. The grounded one, the clear one, the untouchable one. And that, my friend, is the most powerful life you can live.